we're going to be talking about redistricting, which I know you all are all feeling like this is coming at us really fast, and it's certainly been one of the focal points for the on the national level and on the state level for this year, is to talk about redistricting and to really be prepared for what's coming ahead. And so we're really delighted to have two speakers today to talk about it. And to introduce them, Marianne Reeves from Oak Ridge will be the one to introduce them. And Marianne has been has just done a phenomenal job chairing our redistricting committee and really pulling together an enormous amount of material and resources so that we can really be well informed about redistricting. And it's an ongoing effort on her part and on all our part to try and be prepared so that we can be as engaged as possible in the redistricting process. So Marianne, let me turn it over to you and you can introduce our speakers.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Debbie. And as Debbie said, the redistricting program is a top priority for national League of Women Voters and also for our state. And we're just delighted that both Doug and Matthew have decided to take some time, give some of their precious Saturday to us to help us understand the process in Tennessee a little bit better. So Doug, you'll be speaking first. Matthew, you'll be speaking second. And I'm going to introduce you now. Doug Himes is currently the Ethics Counsel for the Tennessee House of Representatives. Doug earned degrees from Lambeth University, the University of St. Andrews, and his Juris Doctorate from the University of Notre Dame. He is currently Ethics Counsel for the House of Representatives. With the National Conference of State Legislatures, Doug has served as chair of the Legal Services Staff Section and staff co-chair of the Redistricting and Elections Task Force. Matthew Hill is the Senior GIS Specialist for the Tennessee Comptroller's Office. He has worked in the Tennessee State Comptrollers for 16 years, where he's presided over the redistricting process for local government officials the last 10 years. Additionally, he and his office serve as Tennessee's liaison to the Census Bureau for redistricting and city annexations and de-annexations. Matthew is a graduate of Motlow State and Middle Tennessee State University. He currently resides in Murfreesboro with his wife, Lauren, son, Carter, and their dog, Lily. So I'd like to welcome both of these gentlemen to our lead program today. So Doug, if you would start off, that would be great.
It would be my pleasure. And thank you so much for the kind introduction. And thank you for spending part of your Saturday morning with Matthew and I, who work close together on redistricting as it happens every 10 years. Of course, this was my fourth redistricting cycle. I was, I guess, fortunate enough to be introduced to it in 1992 when I was an intern for the state Senate, one of the Senate committees. And it was the only time I got to work on Shelby. It was the only time I got to work on Senate districts, and it was only Shelby County districts, which was fascinating to me. The 2000 census, after that, and the 2010 census, I've worked with the House on redistricting. And so my current position, and all of my positions at the General Assembly, have been nonpartisan. And my current position is as the House Ethics Counsel. One of the interesting, I guess, the role assignments is that in this role, I'm also able to participate and be the staff lead for the House Redistricting Committee. So when I speak today, it's going to be about the House, the State House, primarily, and about how the State House has accomplished redistricting in the last cycles as well. And I thought I'd concentrate on four areas, and I know there'll be just a tiny bit of overlap because Matthew's got a great presentation for you. But the four areas I wanted to talk about today is a little bit about the 2020 census, about estimates and projections, because we have some estimates from 2019 and some projections for 2020. A bit about the historical process, and finally, a few bills to watch for that you may have interest in as this General Assembly and the next one picks up back in January. So the 2020 census, I don't think anyone could predict the census that we've had. Obviously, the enumeration is complete, but the data is long delayed. And there's lots of reasons for it, but the data is coming, and it's kind of exciting to be talking to you this week because I think the apportionment data is close on the horizon. And so in a normal year, the apportionment data, which is the US total and the state total, so just the state total populations, that is delivered to the president by January 1 of this past year. And that's an important number for congressional apportionment purposes. And then because we get the state totals with that, we'll also be able to determine what is the ideal district sizes of the US House seats, the state Senate seats, and the state House seats. Well, this census, those totals didn't get here January 1, but the Census Bureau has said that we'll get them by April 30th next week. I was hopeful. I was on a call yesterday with the Census Bureau, and I thought maybe they'd give us an idea of when next week. They haven't. NCSL suggested, and NCSL is the National Conference of State Legislatures. They've suggested that maybe Tuesday or Wednesday. So be on the lookout. So that would be our first piece of the redistricting puzzle for this cycle will be these numbers. And it's kind of exciting. So, but what do we need as a legislature to accomplish redistricting? We need what I referred to as the state level redistricting data. And in a normal year, we'd already have it. It's delivered in a normal cycle on a rolling basis to states from mid-February to mid-March. And the statutory deadline normally is April 1st. This census, the state level data has been said to be officially delivered to the states by September 30th. So by September 30th is the official delivery date. And it's going to be all states at once, not on a rolling basis. That said, the Bureau on the call yesterday confirmed that there's a legacy format of the data. It's the same data, just in an older format. It's easy for people like Matthew to use, who has GIS and a great computer knowledge. Harder for somebody like me that has none of that to use, but it is the same data. And that data, the legacy data, will be released by August 16th. So another date to jot down is by August 16th that there should be some data out there available to folks. And so what's the result of that? The result of that is instead of working on this process sort of after this legislative session on until January, we're going to have a much more compressed time frame, because that data, once we get it, even if it's in the legacy, it's going to take some work to get it in a user-friendly format that we can actually assign people and citizens into the districts, the different districts. So I thought now I'd talk a little bit about what we know and what we think we might know from the 2019 census estimates and some 2020 projections that, again, Matthew was kind enough to share with me, and that we have from one of the vendors that is a demographic vendor and does some of the GIS work. And again, this should all be taken with a grain of salt because it's just estimates and projections. But what we know, and the census estimates tend to be fairly accurate, so it'll always be interesting to see if they turn out to be that way this year. But in 2019, the census estimated that Tennessee grew at a rate of 7.6%. That's good. The U.S. grew at 6.7%. So we're growing ahead of the nation, but we didn't grow anywhere as quickly as we did the decade before. Between 2000 and 2010, we grew at a rate of 11.5%. So we have a slowing in growth. One thing that I think those estimates show us too is with the apportionment data, we're going to be 9 congressional seats. I don't think there's much doubt that we're going to maintain our 9 seats. We're not gaining, we're not losing. And given the fact that we're slowing our growth down, it seems to me it may be a few decades before we see something of a switch in our number of congressional representation. I would point out, it's interesting, the Census Bureau a month ago, if you go on census.gov, they have a interactive apportionment map that's now available. And you can go back, I think it's to 1910, and you can see how the apportionment numbers have affected Tennessee and have affected all the states, and who's gained and who's lost over the period of time. I think it's been since 1980 that we've had the nine seats, if I'm not mistaken. So we've maintained 9 for quite some time now. So what else do we know with the 2019 estimates? We know that the growth in Tennessee, the 7.6%, has been vastly uneven. And it's more dramatic than it was 10 years ago. In 2010, for example, after that census, we had 8 negative growth counties that actually lost population, 6 in West Tennessee, 2 in Middle Tennessee. In 2019, the census estimates, the estimate showed that we would have, or projected to have, 31 negative growth counties. That's a huge number. And those were spread out across the state, 15 in West, 6 in Middle, and 10 in East. So when we get to August or September and we get the numbers, that will be the time when we'll see how these estimates are actually what the numbers the census reveal. But based on that, there's just some huge growth changes and swings. The high growth counties, not surprisingly, are concentrated around Middle Tennessee and include Murray, Montgomery, Rutherford, Sumner, Trousdale, Williamson, and Wilson, and they've each grown double the state average. So we're talking about some very large growth in this Middle Tennessee region. The lowest growth on the 19 estimates is Lake County. It's a negative 10.42%. This is by percentage. The highest growth of a county based on these estimates is Trousdale at 43.38%. Now, that's sort of an anomaly. And if you look on the estimate maps, and once we get the census numbers too, you'll see that there's 2 counties that seem a little bit out of place, Trousdale and Bledsoe. They're both high growth counties, but they also have new prison facilities that opened up between the last census and this census. So that explains it. If you take that out of the equation, then Williamson County has a growth estimate of 30.15%. And now I'd just talk a little bit about projections. So these are 2020 projections that would show at this point that an ideal state house district will be about 70,000 people. An ideal Senate district is about 3 times. It's about 210,000 people. And finally, the ideal congressional district is going to be about 775,000 people. And again, I focus on the state house. So to give you a comparison, if the ideal 70,000, after the last census, it was 64,102 was our ideal. So the districts will go up roughly 6,000 people. So also from the 2020 projections, I can tell you about some of the individual districts. Amongst Democrats, the district, and this is from, we're going to assume that we're going to be at a 70,000 ideal. So this plus minus tells you how the districts would be kind of malapportioned if you took the line with the new data. So from 70,000, I'm going to give you a few figures of where people are above or under. And in amongst the Democratic members of the State House, Representative Bill Beck in the 51st district here in Nashville has the most people to lose. He's overpopulated by 9,392 people. Representative Shaw in West Tennessee, in Hardeman and Madison counties is the most to gain. He's a negative 10,628 people. So that's from an ideal of 70. That's he's below that by 10,628 based on a projection. Amongst the Republican members of the State House, Representative Glenn Cassidy of Williamson County, the 63rd district, will have the most to lose. He has 27,381 people above a 70,000 ideal. And that sounds like a lot, but it's actually a lot less than he was last time. After the 2010 census, that number was over 37,000 people. Interestingly enough, Representative Tim Rudd, his next door neighbor in Rutherford County, the 34th district, is up 26,822 people. Those 2 districts neighbor one another. So you can see that the growth in that part of Middle Tennessee is just explosive. And finally, amongst the Republican members, the most to gain, the district that's going to be the lowest against the ideal, is Representative Chris Hurt from Lauderdale and other counties in West Tennessee. It's District 82. That district's projected to be about 11,700 people too few based on that ideal number of 70,000. I'd also tell you a little bit about the 2020 projections as it comes to congressional districts. The 8th district and 9th district, both West Tennessee districts, represented by Congressmen Kustoff and Cohen, are both negative. They both have more to gain. Representative Kustoff by 53,000, Representative Cohen by 64,000. And then as you can kind of see this trend going, the Middle Tennessee districts, the 4th and 6th, Congressman Desjardins and Rose have 56,000 too many and 46,000 too many respectively. Overall, 2020 projections show more representation for Middle Tennessee, shifting from the West and the East generally to the middle. And from the House perspective, because of the growth, it looks like Rutherford County could gain a seat in the state House. They gained a seat after the last census. They could gain a full seat again this census. Shelby County could lose a seat. The other urban counties should stay the same based on these projections and the estimates. So it will be interesting to see when we get to August, September, what the actual numbers are. And I'll turn now to the historic process that the Tennessee House has used. And I'll start this with a proviso that these decisions are up to Speaker Cameron Sexton. But this is the process that has been used the last couple cycles, and it's the process that we've started working on this cycle. And what to expect. Spring, summer of this year, a committee will be formed. Typically, the committee that is on redistricting is all from the majority party. There's also area leaders that are appointed. Those are the folks that are appointed to work in the different grand divisions and the different urban counties to work on those parts of a redistricting plan. In the summer of this year, because of the data not getting to us until August or September, there'll be a malapportionment table that will come out. And that will be essentially what I went over with those individual districts. It will show where people need to gain and where people need to lose. And in the summer of this year, as well as it was a decade ago, the committee will meet and adopt redistricting guidelines and plan submission information. The redistricting guidelines will likely be similar to the statutory provisions set out in TCA 3-1-103B, which have been the House guidelines for many cycles. And they include in no particular order that the districts must be equal population or substantially equal population, that compliance with the Voting Rights Act and the 14th and 15th Amendments will be complied with. Single member districts, the use of census geography and population count, that's the data that we use. The districts must be contiguous, and that no more than 30 counties on the state House side can be split to form multi-county districts. Generally speaking, if a county divides evenly into the right number of districts, or if a county is ideal in itself that hits that 70,000 number plus or minus 5%, then that's a district, and our state constitution requires that to be maintained. The plan submission information was also something the committee will adopt and talk about when they meet this summer. What it says is that it's only members that file plans with the House, just like bills and resolutions. The only folks that file plans are actually the members. That doesn't mean that outside plans aren't allowable. In the past, and speaking historically, outside plans are okay. They just need to be introduced through a legislator. The last cycle we had 4 introduced. We had 2 congressional plans that Congressman Cooper introduced, and those were submitted by Speaker Beth Harwell. And then we had 2 plans from a group from North Carolina, a House plan, a Senate plan that Representative Gia Hardaway from Memphis introduced into the process. So there'll be a deadline for when that has to happen. Last cycle was November 1st, and that is in order to give me an opportunity to look at them and make sure they comply. I mean, the plans have to be the whole state. They have to comply within the equal population as it's been judicially interpreted to apply to state legislative districts. We have to make sure there's not unnecessary county split or double split, which is prohibited. You can't double split a county. So those are the things that we have to do, and we do a compliance memo for every plan that comes into us, and the committee will discuss them when they have a meeting, likely later in the year. In the summer, fall, winter, that's when the plan is developed. During the 2010 cycle, the House met with 98 out of 99 members while developing the plan. And then in January of 22, the ad hoc committee on redistricting 10 years ago met. I anticipate that would be when this committee will meet in early January. They consider the plans, then they go to subcommittee and full committee into the floor. In 2010, the State and Local Government Committee on the House side handled redistricting, Judiciary on the Senate side. This cycle, the redistricting bills have been assigned to the Public Service Subcommittee of the State Government Committee. So that's where to be watching when it comes to the committee process on the House side. And that leads me to the bills to watch. So which bills to look for? House Bill 1034, Senate Bill 781. That's the vehicle for the congressional plan. That's Speaker Pro Tem Marsh and Leader Johnson on the Senate side. House Bill 1035, Senate Bill 779, same sponsors, is vehicle for the House districts. And House Bill 1037, Senate Bill 780 by Deputy Speaker Johnson and Leader Johnson is the Senate vehicle for the redistricting plans. So just keep an eye on those. Those are likely. They could be a different one, but those are the bills that are out there that have been assigned to the committee, and those are the ones that you might want to keep an eye on. A couple of bills that have gone through this session already, or going through this part of the first half of the legislative General Assembly, is the 3-judge panel bills, and you may have interest in those. And there's 3 of them. There's one that's a House Bill 1130, Senate Bill 868. This is an elected statewide chancery court, and one of the things that this court would do, and it'd be popularly elected across the state of Tennessee, but one of the things that this court would have jurisdiction on is redistricting. So it's something to keep an eye on. House Bill 1436, Senate Bill 1363 is an appointed trial court panel. So it's a 3-judge panel, but it's appointed from judges that are already elected. And that also specifically has some redistricting oversight as well. There's a 3rd bill that is just a little bit more general, but those are the 3-judge panel bills, just something to watch for. And then finally, there's a county redistricting bill, House Bill 853, Senate Bill 786. It's passed both houses, which gives the Comptroller flexibility to extend the deadline for county commission districts. It's currently January 1st of 22. Because of the delays, they may need to extend that a little bit. So this gives the flexibility to allow the Comptroller to give the counties a little bit of a chance to have the data and work it and make sure that they do good county commission districts. And then just a few final thoughts for you. Redistricting is certainly not an easy process. The population growth and demographic shifts will require changes to almost every district. And I always say that 98% of the districts will change. And generally speaking, when one district changes, even if it's in Northeast Tennessee, that could affect something in Murray County here in Middle Tennessee. And it's a domino type effect. So most districts will change. Keep an eye on Robertson County. That may be the one district that doesn't change. It's a perfect county single member district now. And estimates and projections show that it may grow into that same category. So that may be my one district that doesn't change, but 98% will. The House redistricting website, committee website, went live January of 2021, and I'll keep this updated as we proceed through the process. And I encourage everyone to keep an eye on it. You can get to it by going to the General Assembly website under House Committees. At the very bottom is redistricting right now. I'm listed as the contact for the committees. And then I encourage everyone to engage with your House members and or contact me with questions and comments as we go through this process. And again, the webpage has my email, has my phone number, direct to me with any questions. And then I can say, from a nonpartisan staffer that's been here since 1992, and especially the last 2 cycles working with the House, no matter who holds the redistricting pen, the House goal has always been the adoption of a fair and constitutional plan. And that, I believe, is the goal that we have this year as well. So I look forward to hearing Matthew's presentation. I'll turn it over to him and then look forward to your questions.
Well, thanks, Doug. Hey, Mary Ann, I do have a quick question. I do see questions coming in. Are we saving those for the end? Is that how you want to work this?
So we can do it either way. And it may be that some of those questions, Matthew, that you might be answering in the scope of your comments. So maybe, unless you feel that there's some urgency in responding to them. We have a lot of questions, and I'm sure that we are definitely going to take you up on the offer, Doug, to be in contact with you, because that was, as many of us who've been following redistricting feel, this was all like, drinking water from a fire hose on this one. That was a whole lot to absorb, and a whole lot of new questions we hadn't even thought of before. So thank you for keeping us stimulated and anxious. So, Matthew, why don't you go ahead and we'll just do the questions at the end, and see if maybe some of them get resolved in your presentation. Okay.
All right, great. Well, Doug, great job there, and a perfect handoff. But give me just a second to kind of get my share my screen here with you guys. Let's see. All right, can you guys see my slides?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let me actually go back. I did not mean that. All right. Well, thank you again for allowing me to present at this conference. I know this is my second go around. I presented to this group back in around the 2010 cycle. I also recognize some familiar faces. Ethel, a former Comptroller employee, and Susan as well, Susan Matson from the Comptroller's office, former. Just say hi to them. But I know you guys got some great folks on your panel here. But first off, I appreciate the opportunity to be speaking with you guys. As Mary Ann said, I'm Matthew Hill, and I am with the Tennessee State Comptroller's office. And our office works with and supports the local governments across the state in many different ways. But one of those ways is assisting the local governments in the redistricting process. So to understand the redistricting process, we need to begin by defining what is redistricting and reapportionment. First up is redistricting. Redistricting is the delineation of boundaries for political units such as state legislative, voting, and county commission districts. Second, what is reapportionment? Well, reapportionment is the allocation of the county legislative body so that members represent substantial equal population. And I'll go and hopefully let me know if you can't hear this, but I got a quick video that maybe explains it a little bit better.
We, the people of the United States.
The mandate for the census is right here. Just a few sentences into the Constitution.
Representatives shall be apportioned among the several states, according to their respective numbers.
Apportionment. The dividing of seats in the House of Representatives among the 50 states. But how does it actually work? Since the 1940 census, Congress has used the method of equal proportions, which follows this formula.
A sub n equals P over the square root.
Okay, don't worry about the math. Just think of the formula as an apportioning machine. First, the Constitution calls for each of the 50 states to have at least one seat. So subtract 50 from the current House total of 435 and you have 385 seats left. Next, the apportionment machine ranks the states by population according to the census. Then the machine starts giving out seats. After each seat is distributed, the machine re-ranks the remaining states based on the formula until all seats are distributed. This process ensures that each congressional district from Maryland to California has roughly the same number of people. In 1790, each House member represented only about 34,000 people. In 2000, each member represented on average 647,000 people. Since the first census, the decennial count has been the basis for our representative form of government. And as our country grows, the apportionment process ensures equal representation for all, just like the Founding Fathers planned. Apportionment, another gift from from our nation's founders, who transformed the census from a tool of government into a tool of empowerment for the people.
So I like to say for our office, redistricting is kind of like our Super Bowl. I don't know if Doug agrees with me on that, but for us, it is our Super Bowl. And some people actually compare redistricting to a locust in that it sits idly by for 10 years and then poof, it magically appears. Just like Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'm back. But it wasn't always like that, especially here in Tennessee. Before 1960, Tennessee had not redistricted since 1901. In fact, many states did not redistrict at the time. It wasn't until 1962 when Charles Baker, then the Shelby County mayor, filed suit against the Tennessee Secretary of State, Joe Carr, arguing that Tennessee had not redistricted since 1901, even though the state constitution said so. The Supreme Court took up the issue and ultimately decided that the courts could step into matters relating to redistricting. As a result, Baker versus Carr laid the framework for the Voting Rights Act, equal representation and reapportionment, and one man, one vote. Baker versus Carr fundamentally altered the nature of political representation in America, requiring not just Tennessee, but nearly every state to redistrict during the 1960s. And this is why we actually redistrict. And as Doug said, it is done in conjunction with the decennial census. And this is why it's important. In Tennessee, we have over 1,600 county commissioners, almost 850 county commission districts, 2,000 voting precincts, almost 4 million registered voters, and then the 99 House districts, 33 Senate districts, and then the 9 congressional districts. So in Tennessee, there are 3 levels of redistricting. The first is federal, which is congressional. The second is the state, which is the House and Senate, which Doug talked about. And then local, which is what I do, is the county commission, school board, and highway districts. It is during this time that the county commission districts and legislative districts will need to be reconfigured to account for areas of population growth or decline. So at the federal and state levels, districts are established by the General Assembly, generally by the controlling party, which currently is Republican. To accomplish this, the legislature can use internal staff, contractors, or legislative legal services, or in this case, just use Doug. He can do it all. So at the local level, your counties are redistricted in 2 parts: the county commission districts and the voting precincts. The county commission sets the commission district first, and they have certain laws that they must follow when they're setting those boundaries. Once those county commission districts are set, they are then sent to the county election commission, who then establishes your voting precincts. They also have laws they must follow in establishing those voting precincts. So now that we've covered just a little bit of the redistricting basics, let's take a look at what the tentative redistricting timeline actually looks like in Tennessee. And I know Doug kind of covered some of these already, but I'll just briefly touch on some of those. February of this year, our office received the geography data. This is the city limits, the roads, creeks, everything that we will be using for the reapportionment. That's just followed by September 2021, no later than September 30th, 2021, we hope. We're actually, we did get an update, as Doug said. We're hoping for a middle of August release in that legacy format. This is followed by what we call our local redistricting process. Once we receive that data, our office will process it and break it up into the 95 counties. This typically takes us about a couple of weeks to actually break it down into those 95 counties. This is followed by when local redistricting occurs. This is when the counties actually start beginning their redistricting process. As you can see, the timeline is really short. They really only have about 2, maybe 3 months to actually get their local redistricting completed. This is followed by the December 31st, 2021, or January 1st, 2022, the local redistricting deadline. And then, as Doug said, this is followed generally in sometime the first end of January in 2022, when the General Assembly typically releases their redistricting plans. I do want to have a little disclaimer that these dates are subject to change, and due to COVID, there could be some delays and changes to those dates. So looking at the timeline, you can see that the local officials will have between 2 and 3 months to actually complete the local redistricting. So how do we actually do it here in Tennessee? First, our office, the Comptroller's office, releases our guide to local redistricting. This is a comprehensive guide to all things redistricting in Tennessee. Whether this is your first, second, or third time involved with redistricting, this guide is always a good place to start. It provides an in-depth review of the legal, technical, and data requirements of local redistricting. And this will be released in the next couple of weeks on our website, and I'll give you our website link at the end of the presentation. And secondly, to assist and actually complete local redistricting, we use GIS technology. GIS technology allows us to redistrict with precision. To assist those counties, we have also developed our own applications. We have a desktop application, and we also have what we call our web-based application, which is COVID friendly. Essentially, the locals will be able to redistrict in their pajamas on their couches go around. And this is all provided at no cost to our local government officials. So to show you how far we've come, I'll show you a quick little video of how redistricting used to be done. And you might actually see Doug in this video somewhere, and then kind of how we do it now.
Suppose you don't agree that this thing could be turned over to a computer and a man who runs it.
The idea of creating a legislative system through the use of a computer and someone who really knows nothing about the political balance and so on in the state is obviously not a very happy thought to anybody who's actively engaged in politics.
When I first started doing redistricting, we used adding machines, handheld adding machines. Today, anyone with a PC can buy off-the-shelf software and do what it cost us $8 million to do 25 years ago.
And now we're also going to the ability of using software that could superimpose Earth Google Maps over what you're doing. This is almost redistricting in 3D.
So as the video shows, I mean, we could really redistrict with precision down to that block level. But back many years ago, I have several newspaper articles where it showed just a paper map laid out on a table with people with colored pencils and markers, and essentially drawing on it to redo the redistricting here in Tennessee. So GIS has has allowed us to come a long way in actually redistricting. So then I'll touch base, shifting gears a little bit, and Doug covered some of these populations. Even though we don't have those, we haven't received that census data yet, we do have a good idea of where the population is going. So the newest population estimates show that in 2019, Tennessee had almost a population of 6.9 million, meaning we've grown almost 7.6%, or an increase of almost 500,000 people since 2010. And you'll hear this number a lot, especially in the more metro Nashville, but on average, Tennessee sees an increase or a net increase of around 147 people a day. There's more people coming in than moving. There's more immigration coming in than people are dying. So we are seeing that net increase. In fact, this has led Tennessee to pass Indiana in population, now making us the 16th most populated state in the country. So where are all those folks moving to? They're moving to the ring counties around Davidson, Hamilton, and Knox. There is some growth around Shelby County, mainly in the Fayette County area, just not the explosive growth that we are seeing in others. So Williamson, Rutherford, Wilson, and Davidson, and Trousdale and Bledsoe are leading the state in percent gains. And as Doug touched on, Trousdale and Bledsoe have two new prisons that have been built since 2010, meaning that they are some of the fastest growing in the state. So this is what it actually looks like nationally. This map shows the 100 fastest growing counties in the United States. So looking at the Northeast and the Midwest, you can see a lot of yellow, which indicates negative growth to no growth at all. You can also see, if you look in North Dakota, the darker colors where there has been explosive growth, and over in the Texas area. This is generally due to the oil boom going on in those areas. You also see over in the Midland Odessa area and also along the Gulf Coast where a lot of folks are coming to retire. Of note, Tennessee does have 4 of the fastest growing counties in the whole United States. They were Williamson County, which was the 27th fastest growing, Wilson, which was the 37th, Rutherford, which was the 38th, and Montgomery, which was the 74th fastest growing county in the U.S. And as you'll notice, all of those are in Middle Tennessee, which Doug touched on a little bit with why the House districts and Senate districts will look different here in our Middle Tennessee area. And here are our largest counties by population. Shelby is still the largest, and it has a pretty large lead on everybody else. And based off of current projections, projecting out into the future, Shelby County looks like it will hit that 1 million, the 1 million mark sometime around 2035. This looks to stay the same. This list looks to stay the same over the next 10 years, with one exception. Based on those current growth rates, Rutherford does look to pass Hamilton County somewhere by 2026 and 2027. And also of note, this may come out as a surprise, and I think I saw this as a question there. Percentage-wise, yes, while Trousdale and Bledsoe do lead, numerically, Rutherford County has grown faster than Davidson County. Rutherford County has added almost 70,000 people, where Davidson County has added right around about 65,000 people since 2010. And just for those that are curious, here were the fastest growing counties since 2010. And also, just as a disclaimer, the census only ranks these if they have a population of 50,000 or more. So on this list, Thompson Station, you see, has almost tripled in size. I don't know if anybody's from Williamson County, but you guys probably know that Thompson Station has exploded. Nolensville, Mount Juliet, Spring Hill, Rossville, Gallatin, Lebanon, Piperton, Collegedale, which is on the east side of Hamilton, and also Murfreesboro. Of those on the rank, Murfreesboro was the 11th fastest growing city in the United States. And Franklin was the 15th fastest, and Clarksville was the 74th fastest. And for those who are curious, this is what the largest cities are here in the state. Nashville has passed Memphis as the state's largest city. This happened around 2016. That is a title that Memphis has held for a long, long time, I think since the state was formed, as our largest city, but that did flip. And also of note, Nashville also passed Detroit to become the 23rd largest city in all of the United States. And finally, I know we're probably running up on our time limit, but I know I've thrown a lot of information. But if you would like more information on what I've talked about, here is our website along with the Census Bureau's 2020 website. Also, be on the lookout for our guide to redistricting. It will be released very soon, and I can coordinate with Mary Ann and Debbie when we do release that to share that with members. So with that, I will wrap up for you guys. And if there are any questions, I think Mary Ann or Debbie, however you guys want to do it, I think we're open to questions.
Well, thank you very much, Matthew and Doug. Yeah, it looks to me like we've got quite a few questions in the chat box. I do want to ask a very quick question of Matthew, though. You had generously sent us a copy of your slideshow previously for us to look at size, etc. Do you have any objection to us sending that out to our league presidents?
No, share it, and as soon as we get a copy of the guide to the redistricting too as well, please share that.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'm going to turn this over to Debbie, who is going to go through the chat box.
Great. Well, we have a ton of questions, and I'm sure that Doug and Matthew, you're not surprised by this. If we don't respond to all these questions now, we certainly hope that you'll be available in the future. I think it's really helpful that we've decided that redistricting is a year-long project for us to absorb and understand, because it's really clear we're not going to understand all the nuances in one day. And Mary Ann's really done an excellent job in helping us with that background, but it's still not enough to understand everything. Let me start with a question that Cassie raised, which, in fact, Cassie, do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question about prisons?
Sure. I just heard you say that, or I believe it was Doug actually, but for the highest growth counties, and I thought you stated that Trousdale County would actually be the highest growth, or sorry, that Williamson County is the highest growth if you account for the prison in Trousdale. So Trousdale was the highest, Williamson County was the second. And I just wanted to clarify, is that because of the prison population in Trousdale County? I just thought that was a striking statistic.
Yeah. So, Cassie, great question. Yeah. So, typically when they build the prisons, they build these large prisons in the more rural areas. So in a case like Trousdale, pretty much a third of the population is in prison, and Lake County as well. They have a very large prison population. That almost a third of it's there. But now when Doug or me talk about the fastest growing, it's percentage wise. So again, I mean, for like Trousdale County, they only had 7,500 people. Well, they just added almost 3,000 just for the prison alone. So they're moving there, just not voluntarily.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
And
Cassie, you are correct that Williamson would be percentage wise. Numerically, it is Rutherford numerically.
Okay.
And can I add? I'll just add that for the state house and the state senate and the congressional districts, the prison population counts. I mean, we count every person. So every person that the census reports living where they live is counted when we do the districts. Whether or not those folks can vote or not vote, they're counted and they're part of the overall size of each district.
And I will tell you that there, as you guys probably are aware of this, there is a bill, or that's already been passed, but there is a law that allows the locals to exclude the prison population for purposes of local redistricting. It does not affect state shared revenue at all. I know that's a big question we get, but the locals can exempt that prison population when we are redistricting. Trousdale, Johnson County, and Morgan County are going to do so this go around. Then there could be possibly Hardeman is also excluding their prison population.
Okay, thank you.
I'm gonna sorry, I interject. I saw the comment about the prisoners in county, even though they can't vote. I think it's important though that everybody needs representation. Whether it's a prisoner that can't vote, there's still needs that individual has. Just like if it's an undocumented resident of our state, they also need to have representation here at the legislature. So that's why everybody the census counts, they're included when we divide the population for districts. And I think it's important just to say that.
Okay. All right. Yeah. So let's move on to Lisa Bilbrey-Hyder. Do you want to ask your question about input?
Sure.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, this is Lisa Bilbrey-Hyder down in Chattanooga. I was wondering about the process for public input on redistricting as you begin it, not input as to the finished product, but how the public will be able to see what is happening as the districts are drawn, the transparency of the process, and also then contribute to what's happening.
So that's a good question. So I can speak from the House side and what we've historically done, and I can also tell you just what I think would be good for folks to do. And I mentioned, I think the most important thing is to have or start a dialogue with your legislators wherever you're from about your community. I've always felt that our state House members know the areas of the state that they live in better than anyone. They know it much better than I do. So I think it's important for them to hear from you. Another thing that you can do is prepare a plan and work with one of the members to have that introduced. But you could prepare a plan if you wanted to. It has to be a whole state plan, because unfortunately, if somebody just did Shelby County or Davidson County, and that doesn't necessarily help us with the problem if it affects other parts of the state. So it has to be a whole state plan. It always has been that way. And then when the committee is established, when the redistricting committee is established, and I should say contact me if you have questions as well. But once the committee is established, if one or two or three or any number of people or groups want to meet with the chair, I'm happy to facilitate a meeting with the chair. In 2010, the chair of the redistricting committee was Steve McDaniel from Parker's Crossroads. He didn't turn down anybody's request for a meeting, and we talked with everyone. I can also say in 2010, when the redistricting committee met, that there was opportunity for public comment at the end of both of the hearings that they had, and that's another way to communicate with them. But I would just say to communicate with your legislators, and I think that's a good way to provide input as we proceed. Now, again, it's never too early to do that, but we won't have anything. I get asked by some of the members, what's the districts looking like? Well, I can't tell you that because we don't have any data to do that. Well, I can't draw anything until we get to end of August, beginning of September, because we have to have that data once we get it processed, so we can use our program to start to see what the districts might look like.
Is there a way for the public to know where in the process you are once it begins? Is there going to be some transparency on here are maps that we're looking at or situations that we're looking at, and a call for public comment on anything? It seems like in the past it's been sort of like a black hole for most of the public. The data goes in, and then at the appointed time, the maps that the legislature has drawn come out, and that's that.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I think that the process is a difficult one, and it takes time to develop the plan. I think the last cycle we did was probably the most open process that we've had. We met with all the legislators but one, and we had, not that they weren't invited, they were, and we had a comment line that was available for public comment from the day we launched the website. And the last decade, we launched the website after we got the data. One of the purposes of doing the website earlier in January of this past year is just to have these types of interactions. And once the committee is appointed, I'll have the opportunity to speak to the chair and the committee. And it's, those decisions are going to be decisions that they make about how they may decide to do the process a little bit different than we did in the past. One thing I can say, though, is that the chair has never not met with people at any point during the process. It may not be we're at a point where part of the state can be, publicly revealed, because it's such a puzzle of trying to take a state that looks like Tennessee and then not split counties and get the population ideals, comply with the Voting Rights Act. It just takes time, and this year is going to be even a much more compressed period of time. So
I would suggest to the chair of the committee maybe some open meetings, whether they're in person or virtual or whatever, so that people have an opportunity to actually give the legislature, the committee itself, input, and not just individual members or the chair. That would be great.
That's a good suggestion. And last cycle we had all the meetings of the redistricting committee are open, and the public is able to provide comments. So, but it's a good suggestion. And once the committee is there and appointed, I will tell them about our conversations we've had today and pass that along.
And let me ask on that, just as a follow-up to Lisa. Does that mean that they will be as accessible to the public as the regular meetings of the committees of the General Assembly?
Yes, it does. Like I said, and even in 2010, every meeting that the committee had was video streamed. We'll make sure it has plenty of notice. We'll be on the website, at least a week in advance. We'll do as much notice as we can when that schedule's set. We had two meetings last cycle. We had a meeting in June and a meeting later in the year at the beginning in January. At both meetings, we took public comments, and between that period of time, we also had our comment line, which we didn't get a very good. Honestly, people didn't call it and didn't leave too many messages. I think the House clerk was one of the few people that called it just to test it. But that's why we thought it was important to just ditch that. And on the website is my direct phone number and my email. And that's hopefully people feel more comfortable just calling or emailing me.
I'm sure you'll hear from a lot of us. Sharon Webb, do you want to ask your question?
Yes, I can ask my question. I would like to know how the committee is composed.
So again, I could talk from the House side. The speaker appoints the committee. I think last time we had 6 members, and they were all from the majority party. The time before that, after the 2000 census, again, it was probably somewhere between 6 and 7 members. They were all from the majority party, and it's up to the speaker how they appoint that committee. My sense is that the speaker will appoint it sometime in the summer, before that we get the actual state level redistricting data. So another couple months, and then he'll appoint that committee. Those decisions of who he puts on it are up to him, how he structures it. But be on the lookout. As soon as he does it, I'm going to have our website updated, so that everybody can see who they are.
Why is it just the majority leader? Why is it just him? Is that a rule or ordinance or something?
It is a good question. It's neither of those. It's just it's been the practice. Redistricting, as we all know, is a very partisan process, which is weird for a nonpartisan staffer to work on. But that's one of the reasons I think I've enjoyed working on it, because I think the more important thing is that whoever has the power of the pen, that they work on a fair and constitutional plan. And as I said, I felt, last time was the first time that the Republican Party had on the House had the redistricting power. It was, having done it for a number of years, it was as open as we've done. And we've met with 98 out of 99 members, which includes both Republicans and Democrats. But there's no rule that has to be all the one party. We'll have to wait and see how the speaker appoints this committee.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, and I know we're getting close on time, and we may just have to follow up later on. But I did want Dave Volrath. It sounds like you've got a question that Matthew Hill can answer. You want to ask your question?
Matthew already answered. The question was, are county commissioners required to hold public hearings? And he said, yes, they are.
Okay. Okay. So we want to be mindful of the time that Matthew and Doug have committed to on a Saturday, and we really thank you very much for this. This is really informative, and I know that we will have follow-up questions and hope that we can make you available in the future on these things. And I have to ask you one personal question, Doug, which is, did your background as an undergraduate theater major help you in this process?
It doesn't help me with working Zoom. I'm not very good at it, but it doesn't hurt to have a theater background when you work in the legislature, I guess. I wasn't very good in the theater. I only had small roles. I was usually a butler or something like that. So.
So yes. So you're the behind the scenes guy. Okay. Well, this has been wonderfully helpful, and to everyone who's asked, yes, we are recording these sessions, and we're going to be making this information available, of course. I'm sure Marianne will also be gleaning information from this to help share for us in the future. So our thanks to both our panelists. This has just been enormously helpful. And of course, you're welcome to stay on, but we certainly understand you have a busy day today. So
thank you.
Thank
you both very much.
Well, thank you. I know that I see there's a lot of questions, but feel free to reach out to myself or Doug for some of these other questions that you guys have. Thanks again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Matthew.
Okay.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Doug.
Great. All right. I think that we're ready for you, Marianne, at this point. Are you ready to go with your report? And I'm sure you feel as if you have a lot to absorb after that.
Actually, we knew quite a bit of that already.
Yes.
Yes, I do. And I think I have 2 slides, and I think she's going to put them up for me.
I'm just going to make my screen bigger. Okay. Do you see it all right?
Okay. I can see it fine, but it's a little bit, maybe it's just me, but it's a little bit, I don't know. I've got my own copy here, so I can read. I don't know if anybody else can read it. Can you guys read it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. Okay. I'm going to approach this in two parts. One of them is telling you what we've done. And we entered into a contract with the League of Women Voters of the United States, and we did receive a grant. We did develop a strategy and a timeline. And of course, the timeline has been pretty much taken away because everything was predicated around the census dump, which won't be happening until September. But in a way, it's also given us more time to educate more people. So I'm going to go through this. Our goal in this was to educate the public about the intersection of the census, the redistricting, the federal funding, and voting. And all of those do come together at an intersection point. We want to oppose partisan and racial gerrymandering that strips away rights from voters. And we insist on transparency and public input into the redistricting process. So the first thing that we did is we developed and distributed a statement of work and a strategy based on the grant amounts, the schedule, and what we felt our internal capacity was. We did write and widely distribute 2 white papers on the national and Tennessee issues regarding problematic redistricting in general and gerrymandering specifically. I'll also be putting those into the toolboxes that we'll be sending to all league members. So if somewhere along the line you haven't received those documents, you will be getting them. We wanted to educate the league members and the public on local and the county level redistricting. We hope that Matthew and Doug has done that. Probably raised more questions for us. It would be nice to have much more time with them, but hopefully that at least we've gotten a better feel on the county level. I have looked over the county level redistricting document that he is referring to, but it was from 10 years ago. That will be coming out, and we'll make sure that everyone receives that. We're going to write and distribute another white paper on the local redistricting, which will go out with his report. We were asked to develop, as the league does, many project partners. We've done that. We have AAUW of Tennessee is one of our partners, NAACP of Tennessee, Think Tennessee, Civic Tennessee, Tennessee Equity Alliance, Tennessee State University. They will be doing our mapping for us. Our Tennessee Citizens for Open Government, who will be giving us advice on public input and transparency. ACLU has given us advice on strategy and possibly their litigation later. And the Tennessee Refugee and Immigrant Rights Coalition advisory. Many of these advisory groups are contributing to us in our understanding of communities of interest. We continue regular Zoom meetings and communication members with our partners. That will be continuing on right now. We meet with our main partners at least once a week. And then Debbie, Marion, and I meet also once a week to discuss our progress. Next slide, Caitlin. Okay. Develop and distribute a toolbox for leagues, our partners in the public. Our partners have all agreed to distribute these toolboxes to their members and to their distribution list. It will contain suggested voter articles, actions, op-ed templates, etc. That's in the process of being developed. We continue to study the communities of interest, and we're going to be doing that through our mapping that's going to be provided to us by Tennessee State University with advice and input from our partners. And that, of course, will be ongoing also. We're going to develop, actually, we've already developed this, and we're going to widely distribute a series of webinars on redistricting by subject matter experts, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Also develop and widely distribute a slideshow, Redistricting 101. I'll reference that a little bit later also. That is ongoing. Develop a speakers bureau to develop the slideshow, to deliver the slideshow to our leagues and to the public. The public will be getting these with your assistance, which I'll discuss in a little bit. We have started developing nonpartisan discussions with legislators, introducing redistricting bills. We know that other than the ones that were referenced today, that some of the ones that were introduced have not gone anywhere. They were sent to committee to die their legislative death. And those were ones that we were interested in, talking about independent redistricting committees, etc. We've done job descriptions for our work efforts, our mapping efforts, etc. We're going to provide stipends to college students to develop these maps and provide analysis. And we're going to develop an alternate PFM, our own maps that reflect the League's Fair Maps philosophy and provide to the public, media, and legislature. It was interesting to find out today that for the ad hoc committees to consider these, that we have to find a sponsor for them, that the public apparently is not allowed to just give a map for consideration. Kaylin, the next one, please. Okay, the next one is, these are our asks that we're asking our leagues. Please, we hope that you will respond on these because we really do need your help getting this word out. We would like each of our leagues to provide one or more speakers for delivering the District 101 slideshow. We had its maiden wordage with Debby with the Oak Ridge League. We got some feedback that was very favorable. I think we made a couple of minor changes to that to help with the flow a little bit. So we're ready to roll that out. But we do need to have speakers from the various leagues that would be willing to present this. We already have, I think, 5 or 6 speakers that have agreed to do it, but we would like to have more. We provide the slides and we'll provide your Zoom links if you don't have one. And I have the contact information there if you are interested in doing this. The next one is very important. We'd like to have our leagues contact any of their community organizations that they're aware of, their Rotary, their chambers, civic organizations, faith-based, to allow a showing of the Redistricting 101. And if you provide us with the contact information, and we'll make the arrangements. We'll match a speaker who has availability for the time that the organization would like to hear this. We feel that this is a very important component of getting out our message. I mentioned earlier about our Zoom webinar series. We're going to be sending out information for those prior to it. We hope that you will provide advertisement and also participate in them, perhaps give them to your local newspapers, etc. We'll be providing Zoom links for those prior to the event. Currently scheduled events are April the 29th, and that's Kristen Eberhard, I'm sorry. She wrote a book called Becoming a Democracy, and she is going to speak to different aspects of that. On May the 14th, we'll have Professor David Padgett. He is from Tennessee State University. He's the faculty advisor, and he's going to discuss communities of interest. And in June, we have agreement from Senator Jeff Yarborough, and we have not yet have the Republican counterpart. That's going to give us impacts on Tennessee districts. And this will be from the perspective of a senator that has to live with the results of these committees. The next one is we really invite your league members and the public to participate in mapping communities of interest with user-friendly and citizen-oriented software. Now, as we learned today, from Matthew and from Mr. Himes, is that they're not going to accept partial maps. So we can't give them a partial map of a community of interest. But it is a fun thing to do just to see how community interests do impact your community. And David Padgett will be taking any information that you have, and he can roll that into the statewide maps that he is doing. There are two softwares out there. One is called Representable. The other one is called District R. Representable was generated by grad students at Princeton Gerrymandering Project, and District R was generated by grad students at Tufts University. They offer all kinds of training, which takes about an hour. And then it's just fun. I've worked with it. I've played with it some. I believe Debby has played with it some. And you can really, it's just a fun, it's just a fun exercise to do. So if you're interested in that, let us know and we will set up the training for you. You will have access to the software. You can just do it at home, in the comfort of your home, and see how your community looks. For our metrics, we would really like for you to send all of your redistricting activities, times and dates to us, and we'll post it on our website, which Tracy Depp does, and also social media. So Kaylin can give you social media coverage, and our website will give you website coverage. And then when you get the toolbox, we hope that you'll use those to create your own community-specific op-eds, letters to the editor, slideshows, etc. And then, of course, as we do our action alerts, we'll let you know about those. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer any of those.
So, Marianne, I see a number of questions in the chat. And one of them is from Vandy. Vandy, you want to ask your question about college students?
Yes, and we have a couple of colleges in the University of Tennessee right around us, and I'm just curious how you're planning on, should we be contacting those campus groups to let them know about the items in which they can be involved, or will there be something going out from the Tennessee League to colleges and universities?
Okay, we're not, you're talking about the leagues. This is a league effort. So you're talking about any leagues we may have on campus?
No, I thought you said that the grant encourages college and university groups doing projects around redistricting maps. Did I misread that?
Yes, and what we've done is we've reached out to several colleges, and we ended up with Tennessee State University as far as providing a stipend to some of their students.
So that's no longer an available project?
Well, it could be if you're interested. I mean, we can certainly find if there's another student that's interested in this. What we're trying to do is find students that are already working in either the geography departments or their GIS mapping departments.
Okay, well.
Yeah, so any information like that, please let me know.
Okay, we've partnered with the political science department at Maryville College and their student groups, and they have to do a senior intensive project and study before they graduate. So I feel sure Maryville would probably have some people interested. So I'll work on that. Thank you.
That would be good, Vandy. I do know some people at Maryville College. I did not call them. I got on their website. They do not have a mapping department.
No, they don't. They're tiny.
Yeah. It's a beautiful school, and their kids are just incredibly motivated and whatever.
So you're saying that unless a university has a mapping department, there's not really much point in their trying to frame a project around this. I don't want to waste their time or yours.
Well, no, I don't mind hearing what they may have to say, but
Okay.
But what we had to do was go with the department that already had the software.
I got you. That's what I was missing. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry about that. It wasn't clear.
But I do think, and just in terms of our general outreach, that we certainly don't want to overlook outreach that we might want to do to colleges and university populations. Where this is an important thing, and as we all know, this whole redistricting thing kind of takes everyone off guard. Like, we just kind of forget that it happens because it only happens every 10 years. And if you're a college student, it's the first time you've ever noticed it. So certainly, outreach in terms of educating people on the process is helpful. Marion, I saw that you had posted something about the Redistricting Community College. Would you mind just kind of clarifying what that is in case people haven't heard about this?
I will be happy to. As we've been saying, this effort that Marianne was talking about, we're not in this alone. There's the National League has a 50-state program, and there's a lot of shared information. And so when somebody mentioned, was there software training, I realized, I read about that in the national, I don't know if you call it a blog or what, but that there is this community, they're calling it a redistricting community college that is 4 hours long. And you get to pick, I actually signed up for, you get to pick which of the various softwares you're interested in. And it's an overall training in redistricting. I think it covers some federal laws and those kinds of things, but also will teach you how to use Representable, which is about, I think that's one of them, which is about districts of communities of interest district, or full mapping software. I'm sure it's not going to be a, you can totally do it all on your own, but if you're at all interested in the technical aspects of redistricting, I think this would be a good investment of time. But it is time. I think it's 4 hours, and the expectation is that you are present for it because there are small group workshops. So it's not one of those you can sign up to, and listen while you cook dinner or fold your laundry or do other kinds of things.
Great. And another question, just perhaps for a little more clarification, Marianne, I see a couple of questions in here where people asked about the toolbox, and could you clarify sort of what would be the point of the toolbox and what would be included? I think you mentioned it, but probably I think people need to hear that again.
Sure. We've mentioned the toolbox before. I'm starting to gather information to go in it. We want that to go to every league because we realize that, or at least I realize that sometimes when we just send it to one person in the league, it gets lost and, the shuffle. We all have huge email boxes, but we want to have in one place all of the information every league member needs. We want to put in there our 2 white papers that we had, which explains in detail the national issues and the state of Tennessee issues, and why the league is so interested in redistricting. We will have in there templates for you if you want to write an op-ed to your paper or your letters to your editor. We will have in there, for instance, the link to what Matthew was talking about on local redistricting. So we'll have information for things that, one, you can learn about, and it's right there, and you can read it when it's convenient to you, and also things where you can take action.
Great, thanks. Are there other questions that I know we're going to have lots of questions for Marianne as we move forward, but are there specific questions right now that we can help with? I think that, oh, do you want, oh, yeah. So one other question, Joe Singer, do you want to just ask your question about communities of interest?
Yeah, I was interested to know what determines what is a community of interest. How is that?
That's an excellent question, Joe, and we've been struggling with that. That's why we have specifically engaged several of our partners or for just that purpose. We've got Think Tennessee, we've got Civic Tennessee, which trains specifically around that. Tennessee State University, the group that we're with, that's a huge part of their work is communities of interest. But basically your community of interest could be a group of people, for instance, that where you've got a large African-American community, or if you've got a very large cultural community, or if you have an economic community of interest, or if you, for instance, people don't, if they're in a certain school district, they don't want to have their school district, you know, divided up so that you are being represented by two different people. So we're trying to, it's a very difficult question to grapple around because it means different things to different people. Actually, the United States does recognize, as far as the Census Bureau and as far as redistricting communities of interest, racial is one that they recognize, but it cannot be the only one. So they specifically pulled that out, and I'm not really sure why. Maybe they were thinking more in terms of racial could be white, you know, to give more incentive to gerrymander more, you know, I don't know, but it can be part of an overall, the rest of the component there. So we're hoping to learn a lot more during the summer. And we do know that Tennessee has not taken those into consideration. I think they do at the local level, according to Matthew and my conversations with him. You know, we've got some real issues. When you get these two white papers, it will tell you a lot about what Tennessee did in 2010. And basically they violated every good practice for redistricting by today's standards. You know, it's what people today say are good practices. So we want to make sure that they understand that that's where we're coming from. We just want to meet these goals that we were talking about.
And I have to say that, and that's very helpful, Marianne. I have to say that when I think about communities of interest, I think that really is a strategy to say that a community wants to make sure that they have somebody who's representing their best interests as the community itself defines it. So if the priority in a community is a waterway system that they really care about, want to make sure that that doesn't get forgotten by whoever's representing them, or as we often refer to about the Oak Ridge Knoxville connection, that the fact that they have economic links is not overlooked when we do redistricting. So that's very helpful. Yes, I see Marianne is posted again. The time we'll have a follow-up email after this to remind you about the two upcoming talks that we're going to have, the ones that Marianne's already mentioned of Kristen Everhart and the scheduling for that, and then Dr. David Padgett when he talks about communities of interest.